family Iridium. I've got one of the Iridiums here. The one and only Darren O'Sullivan from Sleep Saturday. How you doing, mate?
Good, mate. I think this is the only time in history an FM album is going to be talked about by someone wearing a Queensryche t-shirt. That's a fact.
There's a reason I got this on, which I'm going to go into, and there's a connection.
Ooh.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly. Some people might be watching this and know what that connection is, but I'm going to let you are the FM expert compared to me. I love FM, as you know, and we met. Well, the reason we're actually here is because of FM, isn't it?
It is. My video's down there. We were talking offline about old videos we hated when we were just getting started on this YouTube experience. And I searched for anyone else after I put up my review of their album last year, and you were the only other one I found. And I went, I like that guy. I'm gonna have to talk to him. So I reached out to you.
That's right. And then we ended up, our first time we actually spoke online together was we reviewed this together, didn't we?
We did, Indiscreet, which you picked up. Did you pick that up? Was it last week you picked that up? I saw it on your Facebook page.
Yeah, picked up in an old record shop in near where I live. And what a brilliant album. Actually, my favourite album of FM. I think you was a bit unsure if it was this or the one I'm going to talk about, but they're very close.
Still tossing up. I nearly want a big version, a complete version where I can pick the best songs from the two and make one album.
Oh yeah. So we are actually here to talk about Tough It Out. We're huge FM fans, like we said. Darren, if you want to just go through a few details, we're going to go track by track. Actually, we're going to take turns, but
yes, we are.
Have a little chat about this album and how it came about, mate.
Yeah, so we talked, as you said, one of the first videos we done, Lee, was when we reviewed that album Behind It, Indiscreet, which you tagged me on Facebook this week to make me very jealous. So thanks for that, which you picked up for a bargain. But yeah, we talked about that the first time last year when we first spoke. That was 1986, that album, that first debut record. This one, they'd run into a bunch of problems in the three intervening years. So 1989. They release Tough It Out. They had the band are on record on many different shows and many different interviews saying that the problems that they had after Indiscreet, record labels picking them up and dropping them, and not necessarily that, but kind of squabbles between record labels. They were signed up to a UK record label, couldn't get onto a US because they weren't released from contracts. All that bullshit that goes with the suits of the record industry. But they did get around to it 3 years later to the follow-up, the one we're talking about, 1989's Tough It Out. And,
because 3 years, Darren, that now is nothing. Bands bring out albums sometimes every 5 years. You're lucky sometimes it's virtually 5 years. But back then, it was one a year, wasn't it, from bands?
Well, you're right, Lee. Like 3 years now is nothing. But then again, bands these days can keep themselves present and keep themselves relevant by social media and by YouTube, where you can just access it whenever you like, and Spotify, and they can talk to their fans and keep their face in the media that way, control their image, let's say. But back then, 3 years, if you release an album in 86, which we both love, but let's face it, didn't exactly do gangbusters for the reasons we talked about. They weren't promoted right. 3 years later, it might as well have been 10 years. It's an age. And as we've talked about in a lot of your videos, where you've talked about with the lads where you've gone through all Killer and stuff, music changes very quickly. And 86 to 89, we think it was the 80s, but music changes in that age. Let's not forget 86, Guns N' Roses were barely heard of. In 89, they were pretty much biggest band on the planet. Changes very quickly.
Yeah, and even, if actually, because we've been rediscovering the years, especially on the live streams, even the difference between 86 and 87 was amazing for me. But 86 was my favorite year in rock and metal. 87, all of a sudden, the music changed again, was a bit more polished, was a bit more poppy. A big change in 1 year. So you can imagine what it done in 3,
Exactly. Having said all of that, we are talking about music changing. I don't think this album is necessarily a vast difference from Indiscreet. It's still it's a new album, it's brand new songs. The FM will say that it takes a lot to create an album, no doubt about that, but it's almost like a sequel, isn't it? It's not. It's sonically. We talked before how they started to get into the 90s and they changed a bit. FM tried to do something different. This just feels like a sequel to Indiscreet, a very good sequel. Godfather 2 was a great sequel, you know. So
well, yeah. I mean, if you actually, obviously, me and you belong to a lot of not only FM sites, melodic rock sites on Facebook and so on and so forth. And when people talk about FM, it's usually Tough It Out is the one. I mean, it's the album, and it's sort of. I mean, Indiscreet's my favorite album, but I think that's because of the time I was 16 years old when I got it. I heard it straight away, and I had it all, you know, for years to come. It sort of became my favorite album. And Tough It Out definitely wasn't. But when I was playing it, leading up to our little meeting here, our little Zoom call, it sounds so good. It almost sounds like the band, it was what the band was maybe trying to do, but it was too early for them to do it on Indiscreet, and they were sort of like they properly honed that sound on this album, on the Tough It Out album. Agreed.
It is a product of its time, though. You know, I mean, it is. You know, it's great, but it's, you know, it's melodic, slick vocals, the keyboards, all of that stuff is there. So it is a product of its time. Let's not forget about that. But I'd still say it doesn't sound dated necessarily the way other records might have, but it does sound of its time.
I have actually written down here, Darren, in my little notes here. Is there an album that sounds any more 80s than this?
Right, we're on the same page. So
I mean, I don't know the band. Look, we know that bands now that are around now that are trying to emulate the 80s sound, they say that they're not. They get the right ump when you say this sounds like an 80s album, and I can understand that they're a new band, but you know, FM were about in the 80s, so you could say if they were watching this video, everything about this album emulates the 80s. You can't listen to this album. If anyone listens to this album, they'll say that's an 80s album immediately. Yeah, immediately, without a doubt.
Do you think a lot of that has to do, and we'll get into it when we get into track by track, but you know, on our little upfront conversation here, do you think a lot of that has to do with the there's a lot of keyboards here?
There is a lot of keyboards, but I've got to say though, Darren, every song sounds like a hit. Every single song could be a single. Every song sounds like it could be huge and should have been a hit. It's just unbelievable. We spoke about these guys and how good they are. And man, I mean, when I was refreshing myself with this earlier, I was just thinking, that sounds huge, that song. That could have been either a soundtrack for a film or, you know, huge songs on every track.
It's interesting you make that point, because I've told you and I've told your listeners a number of times before, me and my mates, a few beers, we pass the laptop around the table all night. Everyone gets one go and everyone's trying to outdo the next person with their song and go, oh, that's a good one, or whatever. Can't play anything too obvious. We have put, for the only band that we have said there's like a limit on it that you can play in that game as we drink beer and pass the laptop around, is FM. Because my friend Shane said FM is like a cheat card. No matter what song you play, it's always fucking great.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a winner.
I mean, we did speak about these two albums. You mentioned earlier on about them being very, not similar, but they go together. You did definitely right. There is a slight, which we get onto, a slight head towards that bluesy side. On one track, I'd say on one track on this album, which...
I know what track you mean.
I've actually got to speak about it, so that's good. But
I know you do. I knew you would do it. I knew it. I was thinking it today. Yeah.
But it's only slight, but you can feel that that's where they were going to go. But a lot of bands were going in that direction in the 80s. Again, that bluesy sort of rock sort of sound as well.
They were. I think Steve Overland has it in him, and I think that track you're talking about, that's the embryo. That's the little kernel of where you could see that they could potentially bring it at some point. And they do a lot of it these days in terms of that bluesy. They do in this track you're getting, or in this album as you call it, you're getting maybe one track. In later albums, you're going 3 or 4 tracks, maybe, you know. So the little kernel, little nugget of it is just that in this record you can hear it.
Yeah, and just to make things clear before we start, I definitely prefer. Although I think they do the blues side really well, but me personally, I love it when they play pure AOR melodic rock. That's for me. FM are just perfect at it, you know.
I agree with you. If I want a bluesy feel, I'll go to a couple of the Stones mid to late 70s kind of albums. If I want that, I love FM. I'm an FM fanboy, you know that, but I don't really come to FM for blues. It's not my vibe.
Agreed. So, I mean, we called it discussing the classics, didn't we? I think back then when we talked about Indiscreet. I think we did, didn't we? I'd say this is definitely a classic in the AOR genre, without a doubt. I mean, some people might not have even heard of them, which is unbelievable, but we definitely have. So that's why we're here today.
The people that haven't heard of them haven't heard of them, but the fan base that have heard of them are hardcore.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt, mate. Without a doubt. So, tough it out, mate. 1989.
So, I'm going to take the odd numbers.
Just quickly, the reason I got this on, mate.
Oh, yeah, come on.
Produced by Neil Kernon, or wherever you pronounce it. He also produced this album, Rage for Order by Queensryche, which was, it's probably in my top 5 albums of all time. I didn't even know this until I looked earlier on that Neil Kernon produced this album. And also Dokken Under Lock and Key, which is also one of my favourite albums. And Lynch Mob, Wicked Sensation. So some of the best albums for me that bands brought out have been produced by the same guy. There you go.
And that for you, my friend, is why you've got 2K subscribers. You know, it's the little details like that. I didn't even look at who produced this. I'll be honest, I didn't even look this time. I think I did for Indiscreet. I didn't on this occasion.
He's done a bit of prog rock as well, like Yes and bands like that. So interesting stuff. But he's done. It's not just back then. Throughout his career, he's done loads of bands. So
yeah.
Anyway, so you're going to take the even numbers, mate. Odd numbers. I got you there, didn't I? We start with the title track. You're going to go odd numbers. I'm going to go even. We're going to take turns, but chipping, obviously.
Don't you dare do that to me like that. Not when we're on live. Don't you dare. Don't do that to me. Although I love FM, I can talk about every song anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, Tough It Out, the first one. You know, the album doesn't burst into life the way you might think it would for a record like this. It starts with that kind of sounds of, did you notice it's like them sounds of ambulances and roadworks and kind of like chatter and kind of like this bustling inner city kind of sound at the beginning of it, which is a very interesting choice to start an album.
It actually made me laugh because when I was listening to this earlier, I can't remember that. I couldn't remember that part of the beginning. But anyone who's younger who may be watching this would not have recognised the police or ambulance siren, which was the old 80s.
80s sound.
It wasn't the whirling one.
The bill. Sound of the bill, yeah.
Very cool.
I liked that. It was very retro. Well, I suppose contemporary for its time, but retro now to hear it back. But yeah, it's that kind of, it's overlaid by Digital's keyboard, and it's a very atmospheric kind of cool way to start off the record, because you think in a record like Tough It Out, you think they're just going to hit you with it from the beginning. They don't. They bring you in, but then they hit you. They go, whoa, and then you're in. You know, absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Me and you have talked many times about FM. You've done it on your show, the unappreciated. I can't remember the exact name of your series. The unappreciated bands.
Underrated.
Underrated. Yeah. We've talked about them in that series and other videos. And we always go on and on and on about Steve Overland's voice. But something I wanted to call out, just give it a little bit more, because I noticed as I was pressing play on this first song, just give the band a little bit more of recognition here, because it's both from the musicianship from all of them. So you Pete on drums. I've said a million times, you've got Pete on drums, Merv on bass, Didge on keyboards, and Steve Overland's brother, Chris Overland, on lead guitar. Not only are they very, very tight as a band here on their second album, the backing vocals are great on this first song.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, without a doubt.
Just a big, bombastic kind of chorus. Tough it out. Like, you know, it's just, and it, you know, it's almost, I could see why they started with them sounds of that inner city at the beginning. Because this to me is like a blue collar, gritty kind of song about surviving on the mean streets, you know, tough it out. And I think that's why they started with that sound. One last thing I'd say to you, Leah, I'm going to play a little game as we go through this album. So just for fun, I'm going to I've spotted a couple of occasions where famous songs names or lyrics are included in this FM song, this FM album. Could be just coincidence, I don't know, but there is an open line here. You've been sleeping on a bed of roses, which reminded me of Bon Jovi just 3 years later. So I thought I'd call that. It's a few occasions it happens here. But Tough It Out, great chorus, great open.
There's just one thing I want to say about this song. You covered everything, but there's one thing that I do in about 3 or 4 of these songs. I don't know if you've noticed, it's very 80s as well. Obviously, it was in the 80s, but there's a lot where the synths are following the bass line. So you get boom, 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 and it's following the bass line. It does that in this song as well, before the first verse comes in. Very sort of that poppy rock, melodic rock sort of thing. Very cool though, very cool. Okay, cool. I'm hoping that this is the song we're talking about that has the little bit of bluesies, just a touch. I don't know if it is this one you're thinking of. This is the second track, Don't Stop. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not saying it's a blues song. It's just got slight elements and you can hear it coming in where they're heading for, especially, I mean, what was the third album called?
Taking It to the Streets.
Take It to the Streets, that's right. So, I mean, and they experimented with it a lot more then, but you can hear just tinges of the blues on this Don't Stop song. But I love it still. It's really fun. It's got those sort of rock and roll vibes to it as well as the little bluesy side. I've written down, I don't even know why I'm saying this, but obviously Overland, it's just the Steve Overland's voice. Let's just say now, right? Tracks 1 to 11. Steve Overland's voice is just amazing. And we've got to give props to the rest of the band, of course. But you know what? He's just so smooth in every song he sings. Quite a simple chorus, this, but really effective. I mean, some of them are quite simple, these choruses in this, where it's just the title of the song. But what they do is they add so much sweetness with those backing vocals and all that. Yeah. It just lifts it, no matter how simple the chorus is. Very, very cool indeed. But yeah, a great song, Don't Stop. That's track 2, mate. You like that one then?
I do like that. And I liked the fact that it's written by not the Overland brothers. There's a lot of songs here written by Steve and his brother Chris. I think this one is written by Merv and Pete and Didge. So I like that with FM. It's a collaborative effect. You know, it's not just we'll write this and you all just play. You know, the kind of way the lads get a chance to write a song and get a song onto it. You know, it's not the Ringo Starr. You know, Ringo, we give you the end track on our 12th album or something. You know. Everyone gets a chance. Well, Steve is the only one that sings, but everyone gets a chance here to contribute creatively as well. I like that.
Yeah, it's cool. It is cool. Okay, track 3, mate.
I mentioned on track 1 that opening sound effect, and you get it here, or that mean streets, them grimy mean streets. You get it here again, this opening sound effect of like a scream in the distance. And it reminded me of almost like a dystopian future kind of, because it has Digi's keyboard or some form of production comes over it where it gives it that real futuristic Blade Runner almost kind of vibe. And I thought that was really cool. Then there's the opening line, which when I was looking at this today, I had the lyrics out in front of me as I was listening to the album, because I just wanted to see if I could pick up a few bits. So I didn't pick up before, because you just sing the songs along, you know, you don't really think of it. After that scream in the distance, the opening line is, "There's a cry on the street in the dead of night, a cold, empty feeling, losing the fight." So it's not just in there for effect, just to sound cool. The opening lyric addresses what that sound effect actually is doing. I love that. I think that's really cool. I think that's really, really cool. The song doesn't sound like Tough It Out, Lee, but I think it kind of has the same DNA as the first song, as Tough It Out.
It's got that what I was talking about earlier on, that keyboard and bass, boom, 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 boom. It's got that in this as well. So yeah, I had down keyboard. You're absolutely right, keyboard. I had down kind of great hooks and great riffs on it, and just kind of it's not the same song, but you can see the template of it being, even that big chorus again. I've had bad luck finding a look. You know, you could, perfect for a live show. Oh yeah. This is one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's huge. Yeah. This song. It's a single. It's a single as well, wasn't it? I think.
I think was it a single, was it?
I'm not sure. I think it was. I think I can remember it being a single. If it's not, I apologise. But to tell you the truth, it's probably me thinking they're all singles because they just. This one is especially so catchy. If it wasn't one, it should have been. Put it that way.
Agreed, Lee. It's very catchy, and what it does great is like me and you could take a pal. Me and you could go to an FM gig and bring a pal who's never heard them. This song could be past the first chorus, and our mate who's never heard them will be singing the chorus with us the next time around. You can just catch it like that, and that's key to good songwriting, isn't it?
Without a doubt, mate. An absolutely brilliant song. One more thing I've got to say about it is a slight, and look, bands are going to take influences from each other around that period for sure, but there's a slight "You Give Love a Bad Name" riff going on leading up to the verse. I don't know if you noticed that. Ding, 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 that sort of similar sort of riff.
I didn't pick it up, but now that you've said it,
yeah. I mean, it's definitely worth another listen. Just go, you think, oh yeah, it's a slightly different arrangement, but you can just hear it slightly. But a lot of bands were picking up on it, what they were doing at the time. But
absolutely,
one of my favourite songs, without a doubt.
Absolutely brilliant song. But
I actually get to talk about my favourite song on the album, which is next. So thanks for taking the odd numbers. I've got the even. So Someday You'll Come Running. I think this was a single. I think this was. This is just AOR brilliance, this one, mate. This is your favourite song? This is your favourite song on the album? Yes. Wow. No. I like it, but wow, your favourite. And I'll tell you why. I think FM, like I said before, they are so good at the AOR side of their songs. Like Tough It Out's a good song, for instance, the title track. It goes in that heavier direction, don't you think? Where the guitar is more about the guitar driving. But, I'm always saying I love a guitar-based band. But when it comes down to proper AOR, I want them to do it as melodic as possible and as catchy as possible. And that's what FM do on this track. I mean, I don't think there's any other band that does it better. And this is just proof that it's just amazing. The backing vocals you've already mentioned on this are just mental. The solo is outstanding. It's one of the best AOR songs written, I think, this song. I think it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I think it's a great song. I wouldn't have picked, if you'd asked me to put a gun to my head and said, pick Lee's favourite song on the album, this would not have been that. I'm not dissing this song or dissing your choice, but this isn't what I would have thought you'd pick. No, I love it. You've surprised me on that. It's brilliant. But I get your logic. When you explain it, I get where you're going with it. Absolutely. Because what I've done as well, which you can't see and no one can see it, I've also, when I listened to this earlier on, I'm not going to say what they are, but I broke my scores down for each track. So to give me an idea of how good the songs are and how I feel about them. This got the highest one. This one. Wow. yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant song. Surprised me with that. Okay, cool, man. Okay, track 5, mate. It's up to you. Track 5. Yeah, I'm down. Okay. I think it's fair to say this is probably the first ballad on the record. Without a doubt. Yeah. This, you've just talked about your favorite song on the album. This is possibly, FM go in different directions with ballads and harder songs, but this is possibly my favorite song, certainly ballad by FM. Oh, right. And our good pal Delina, who subscribes to me and you and has been on our live shows, this is her favorite song by FM, hands down. Yeah, so absolutely. Every Time I Think of You, by the way, just to let the viewers know what it's called. That was my fault. Oh, did I not say it? Sorry. That's my fault. Every Time I Think of You. I was so fucking eager to talk about it, and I had to get straight into it. It's brilliant, though, mate. Go ahead. Yeah, no. Do you know what I like sometimes when songs do this, right? You know when a song grinds against itself melodically and sonically. So kind of what I mean about that is when a song is kind of upbeat with the music, but distressing lyrics for the protagonist of the song or the singer. Yeah. And it's that grind of I'm dancing to this almost, but I'm kind of
feeling bad for the lyrics of what he's singing. You know me, I won't do it too much, but you know me, I love to get into the lyrics. That's why one-to-one is pretty good. You'll get into the technicality sometimes of the music. I'll get into the lyrics. Song's about a guy whose relationship has fallen apart from mutual differences with his other half. But what really, really hits me, gut punching hits me on this song, it's obviously the melody I've spoken about. It's these lyrics. Why do we choose to be lonely? Why do we choose to be sad? Every time I think of you, I keep thinking there's a place for us again. And it's like them two lines. Why do we choose to be lonely? Why do we choose to be sad? That feels as though both of them are miserable in their lives, but not together, and they could be together. And I kind of, why do we choose to be lonely? I just love that. I think it's gut wrenching. I love it. I'm being a bit sappy here, but I love it.
No, mate. I mean, it's a brilliant song. I've put down here that, I mean, it's just another one that could have been huge if it was. I don't think it was a single, but it just sounds like it, like every other song on it. It's just an amazing song. So yeah,
absolutely. My little game here again. 10 years before it, the Babies had a song of the same name, 1979.
All right, cool.
There you go.
Okay,
what have you got?
I've got "Burning My Heart Down," which is track 6. So this is fun, isn't it? This has a more, obviously after the sort of ballad. This, and again, this uses that synth bass thing again, which is like about the third time on the album. Very sort of poppy, you know, that, and I'm not saying they're pop music, so no one get on me about that. But, you know, it's got that pop elements. Of course it has.
Of course it has. It does.
This sounds almost, I mean, when I was listening to this earlier, I thought this could have been like on a Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack or something like that. It's just pure 80s soundtrack for me. Do you know what I mean? This song.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like not my favorite song on here, but it gives me so many sort of, it just brings me back to watching some 80s action film or something like that. Very cool song indeed. Really fun. What was the face for then, mate? You surprised at that, or what do
we'll get into the point. Next song we'll get into it when you mention Beverly Hills Cop. We'll get into it in a second. I fully get what you mean though. You know, yeah. No, I'm with you on that, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these songs did that to me, where it could be a soundtrack or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, they got that vibe for sure.
I think you made a good point at the start of that, though, in terms of, because I was talking about a ballad with a gut-wrenching lyric, you know, and then you're talking about this song kind of bringing it back then a little bit, bringing us back up a little bit, and that just comes down to great sequencing on an album.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, if you've got 11 songs, track 5 is where you want the ballad in it, 4 or 5 for sure.
Absolutely.
And then pick it up again, just like they did on here. So
it's just that slalom, isn't it? Just, you know, take you on that, love that, just take you on a journey throughout it, and that's perfect. Absolutely, you're right. You hit the nail on the head with the sequencing.
Man, you got a good one next, and I think I've heard you talk about this song before. Track 8, "The Dream That Died."
You know, "The Dream That Died," when I was listening to it again today, and me and you talked off kind of camera where we were saying, geez, forgot some of the songs on this, because we always talk about FM, because you're doing videos every week on artists, and I'm doing videos every week on artists. Sometimes you forget to go back to the albums you love, you know, or you haven't heard them in a long time. So going back is almost like a treat, you know, going back and listening to it again. And when I heard this one today, "The Dream That Died," track 7, again written by the two Overland brothers, sonically, this song for me had a Journey Raised on Radio kind of feeling about it. It's like a mellow song, a bit like, I don't know if you've listened to Raised on Radio too many times, but that song, "I'll Be All Right Without You,"
I love it.
I
love that song. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I had that kind of feeling to it. This particular song, not like for like, but just the same kind of mellow kind of feeling it gave me. I watch a lot of your videos, and something you pick up on is when a song, something you pick up on, which you're really good at, is when a song is smooth and when it's melodic. And I think this is that song. It's just got that great kind of feeling about it. The reason I laughed on your last one is because I said, do you know, I was going to say, you know, when you watch a movie and it's a Saturday night and you've had a couple of bottles or whatever, and you're watching a movie, something like Cocktail or Beverly Hills Cop, right? And you know when you fall asleep when you're watching it and you wake up when the end credits are gone?
Yeah.
Well, this, The Dream That Died, feels like a Cocktail or Beverly Hills Cop end credits to me. That's why I actually noted that to myself. So when you said on the last song, we are picking up on the vibe here that these songs kind of, clearly have. We're both saying it now in the same video. So I thought that was funny. That's why I made a bit of a face on the last one.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've given this a high mark, this one. I love this one.
It's great.
The way the synthesizers in this one, like quite high up in the mix, and that's another reason it gives you those soundtrack vibes, I suppose, because that's what you had, wasn't it, back then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about, track 8, is Obsession. So, now you're going to love this, because I'll put here, this reminds me of a band that you talk about, you've spoken about a couple of times. This really reminds me of Huey Lewis and the News, this song. What? It really does. It really
I thought I had exclusive rights to call out Huey Lewis and the News on your channel, Lee.
And listen, the only songs I've heard of from Huey Lewis and the News are the big hits. You know what I mean? But this sounds like that sort of thing. And it's really weird. Straight away, I thought of that band. They sounded like, obviously out at the same time, you know what I mean? That's when they were about, but and a lot of the bands then had that real sort of AOR poppy sort of sound. It's a really fun track again. And I've put here that it sounds better than anything that topped the charts back in the UK or in America at the time, man. It's just huge.
I don't get it, Lee. I don't get it. With this this is 2 for 2 now, where they didn't hit, and whether that's politics or whatever, they didn't hit. And this is 2 for 2 now with 2 great albums, as we've both said many times in this video and others. Track after track after track after track is a hit, or certainly a single. What's the problem here? I don't get it. What is the problem? Sometimes it just comes down to more than talent. You are right, though, about the Huey Lewis and the News thing, Lee. It's funny you should pick up on that, because 2 years before this, Huey Lewis and the News had their biggest album, 1987's 4. That was their. They'd had Sports before that, but 4 was a big album for them. And I know exactly where you're going with Obsession, because it could fit in. That was a short album. I think it only had 8 songs on 4, but it could fit in there, slot in there anyway.
Without that.
For someone who's not familiar with them, the fact you've called that out is quite clued in. So I love that.
Without that, mate. Yeah, definitely gave me those vibes. So I was quite laughing when I heard it, because I thought of you straight away. But very cool. Very cool indeed. Yeah. Okay, absolutely. Mate. Track 9.
Track 9, Can You Hear Me Calling? Again, written by the 2 Overlands. Man, Chris Overland, I've said to him a number of times before, the man can write a song and he can play guitar great, and I'm done, Steve, I'm out, I'm going to teach guitar lessons or whatever for the rest of my life. I love it. But he's they're very talented as a duo, and as much as I love FM now, and they brought in the new guitarists and stuff, that's fine, but I do think writing and lead guitar wise, they did miss Chris a bit later on. They found their footing, obviously, but I think the best albums have Chris on it. I hate to say that, but
I mean, would you say then that he was obviously their music did change. I'm not saying it drastically changed, but like we spoke before about the bluesy side coming in. So perhaps Chris was that AOR guy. Perhaps he didn't like the bluesy side they were heading. I don't know, but I don't know what actually went on behind it. I think he just didn't want to do it no more, did he? But I mean, it's amazing how they did change, even though they kept with that melodic rock side. They didn't go completely, the other way, but definitely more blues infused for the next few albums.
I think they lost something. I think they lost something when Chris left. And don't get me wrong, I love FM, love their latest album and stuff, love Steve's work, but I just think they lost something when he left. The Overlands are like the Gallagher brothers of melodic rock. They're great songwriters together, and kind of probably didn't have the same punch-ups, but great partnership. And this song, track 8, Can You Hear Me Calling, is one of them. One of my favorites on the record, and dare I say it, I think it might be Steve Overland's best vocal on the record on this particular song. We've had other songs where we've said it, where the guitars are doing the work, where The musicians are doing the work, but Steve's voice is very clear. It's very, it's high up there. You can hear it on this one. It's one of those.
Would you call this a ballad? This is very close to being a ballad.
It's certainly in that middle zone. It's straddling. It's probably just tipping off both sides. Probably falling down. The scales is probably tipping just down towards the ballad side. But this is a song where I said you could I was listening to it today, and it was the only song as I listened to the album. I rewound it a minute because I wanted to hear the end, that last minute after the bridge, because it's just Steve's voice and the keyboards over. I know you're not a big lover of keyboards unless it's in context sometimes, but Steve's, I'm a bigger lover of keyboards than you are. But that last minute of this song, I'd say to anyone, you'll just rewind. You'll rewind that last minute every time. It's great, absolute honey to the eardrums. Love it. It's great stuff.
Yeah, again, I'll put it down here that it's quite a simple chorus, but with all that sweetness of the backing vocals, and it just lifts it up just that one step further, doesn't it? Absolutely, I love that song. Actually, it's a brilliant song.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Okay, track 10. Does It Feel Like Love? So I've scored this one high as well. I love this song. Some great. By the way, in the last one, I did actually put down a little bit of twin lead there, and they do remind me of Thin Lizzy sometimes in their twin lead parts. And that happened at the beginning of the last song, by the way. Just what I mentioned.
Right.
But Does It Feel Like Love? So some great guitar work as well throughout this song. A sort of a huge chorus with those again. The backing vocals, nice little simple synth touches, almost like piano synth touches, just to add the melody and ramp up the melody just a little bit more. The keys are sort of near enough running constantly in this one. I don't know, a lot of synthesizer noise in the background, which adds to the whole, gives it depth, if you like, the song.
Where are you on that then? I don't mean to break up your notes, but where are you on that point? Because are keyboards cool with you within context, within
I think
plugged it.
I think
plugged in right.
Yeah, I think with FM especially, they use them very tastefully. It does what everything it's meant to do. If you're going to have keyboards in a song, and you need keyboards in AOR, you can't. Otherwise, it's a metal album,
Yeah.
But it's just like the way they use them is very cool, and they've gone with the times as well. It's like the synths in this is very 80s sounding. Every noise that comes out is like an 80s sound. But now when they use them, they're very updated now. Although they still they have those 80s melodies. Keyboards and FM go hand in hand as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
There's a brilliant solo in this one, by the way, with twin lead parts again. They're just brilliant at the twin lead part, and I think that's. So who was the other guitarist? Do you know who the other guitarist was at this time?
Well, they only had one main lead guitarist, Lee, was so I don't know if they're putting that onto the production of it itself. So where you're picking up on the twin lead, but Steve played a bit of rhythm guitar on stage a good bit. And whether Steve was playing a bit of lead with his brother on the recording, I don't know. But he played rhythm on stage, and Chris was the main lead guitarist for the band.
He could probably play, if he could play rhythm guitar, he could probably play a bit of twin lead, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's just melody lines in it, but I'm saying it as if I play guitar. I'm saying it's only a bit of twin lead in it.
So easy.
Exactly. So, I mean, there was lots of different versions of this album, by the way. We are going for the original 1989 version, because I think on one of them there was about 20 tracks later on a remastered version, but the last
and they re-released it just this year as well.
And they've done a live one, I know, and as well.
Yeah, that is their. Yeah, sorry, they done a live version of it this year.
But they've released a few versions of it. I think there was one. There was about 18 or 19 songs on it, but this one we're going to end here. So it's 11 tracks. Feels So Good is the last track, mate. You're going to speak about this one.
That it feels so good. Oh, when we make love.
Well, can I make one point on that song that you were calling out there?
Yes.
As I've been going through this, I've been naming other songs from other bands. In the same year this album came out, and I've told you about this album before. I think, again, I've done on your underappreciated albums. Marcy Free had a record in this same year with a project called Signal. And there's another song on that album on that same year called Does It Feel Like Love? And for me, it's better than this song.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Just don't get me wrong, I love this song, appreciate everything you're saying about it, and I'm with you. Just on the same year, there's another melodic rock song that I thought was better with the same name. So just anyway, last track, Feels So Good. What an upbeat song to finish off your record. And I think this might be my favorite. So I talked about my favorite ballad by FM. I think this might be my favorite upbeat track by FM ever.
Oh, yeah, very cool.
Love this album. What a way to close a record. You talk about singles, Lee. This could be a lead single for me. I mean, we've talked about Bad Luck. We talked about Tough It Out. This is up there with any of them as a, if you want to hit the airwaves, let's say, as a single to introduce your album. Chris Overland again, his guitar is just hitting you from all angles as the song comes on, as the song opens up, and then that chorus, when it hits the chorus, and it feels so good. Love that, absolutely. What a song to finish your album. This song is buried at the end of the album, and it's like one of the best ones on it.
I mean, you find that with albums that sometimes they end on absolute. It's like the one they just want to put it on the end, but sometimes it's just a belter, and I prefer it. But don't you? You need albums that end on a high to make you want the next album. That's
absolutely.
Or play it again, one of the two.
Or flip it back around and play it again in the 80s with your record. Yeah, exactly.
I've got to say though, then Huey Lewis and the News vibes came out on this one for me as well.
Really? Bit. I don't know where. Really? No, I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't know where you're seeing that.
Yeah, it did.
On this song?
Just for me. But you know what I'm like now. I'm a bit weird, and I see things that probably no one else does.
Yeah.
Very cool track. I do love it. I do really like it, yeah.
I'll cap off my little game with the opening line on this is, "We've always gone our separate ways." So there you go.
Oh yeah.
So I noticed a little Journey ref. I don't know if, certainly not on the first one because that's Bon Jovi 3 years later, but on the second track as well, they have a lyric. The one that, sorry, I didn't mention it when you said it. They have a lyric saying "loving every minute of it," which is from Loverboy in 1985. So I don't know if they were sprinkling in a couple of homages for people who were just wanted to see it, and they were doing it deliberately, or if it's just me seeing shit that isn't there. It's like UFOs that aren't there, but there's a couple of references to separate ways and loving every minute of it and all this kind of stuff. And did they do that deliberately? I don't know. Who knows?
Only they will know, and they probably wouldn't tell you anyway.
Exactly. They wouldn't, even if they meant it. They don't. Remember, this is about 6 years after that big Journey song, and then they open a lyric where we've always gone our separate ways. Was it a slight nod? I think you're right. They wouldn't tell you if you asked them to their face.
No, they wouldn't. They definitely wouldn't, mate. But I mean, what a great album. I'll tell you, I'm fighting with myself. After listening to this today, I'm fighting with myself whether it's this one or Tough It Out. But they are definitely my favourite two FM albums. I don't like saying that either because, you know, I love to say that the band, they do make great albums. The last few have been brilliant. I don't know what you think of the last few albums, Darren. I know you like the last one. But I think they're definitely getting back on track to this AOR sound that they had, although it's an updated version of it. But sometimes these albums just stay with you because it's just either the first ones you listen to or you grow up with them. I grew up with these two. So it's like they are there in my heart. You know, they're the ones that stick with me because of that. Perhaps if I was 30 years younger, I might like the new ones, you know? More.
I love the band, so it's almost like love is unconditional, you know, sometimes. I didn't go mad on the couple of albums they done in the early 90s. I felt, for me, I loved them because they were flying on the goodwill of the first two for me. Then the last couple of albums that they've done since they came back, they've done a few great albums since they come back, particularly the last three albums, which I just think are stellar albums. Yeah. I said earlier on they're missing something with Chris, but they do gain something with, you know, with what they've got going on now. I'm not saying it's dead in the water because Chris left. I'm just saying he had a certain something for these first two. You're talking about the album number 1 and album number 2, Indiscreet, and this one, Tough It Out. There's I'm a Superman fan. Superman 2 came out, the director was sacked, and then years later he made a director's cut of it. And I love the director's cut and I love the original theatrical release. But what I'd love to see is one cut overall. With these two records, I think you could make one cut of a stellar. Like, I mean, they're both great individually, but if you took the best from both, that album would be unbeatable.
Without a doubt, mate. Without a doubt, you could definitely. They're definitely matured in those 3 years. I would say. I mean, you don't realise how much they did. Although I love this album with all my heart, I think they definitely matured. There's a different sound to them, like a more confident sound on this Tough It Out album for me. Even though even though they had all the shit they went through in those 3 years, but you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, mate.
Man, I love talking about FM to you. I could just keep doing this and doing this. If you want to press stop now, we can just re-record the whole video again. I'm up for that. I don't care.
Brilliant. And listen, we spoke a bit before here because I want to give a little plug. We'd have to, don't we? Apart from this FM album, which is a brilliant example, plus the one we talk about, Tough It Out, of 80s AOR brilliance.
Yeah.
We got one here that's actually been brought out to show that AOR is still alive and kicking in a brilliant way today, and that's the Nitrate album, which we both got, haven't we?
We do, and give a shout out, Lee. He's kind of a pal of ours now, the leader of that project, Nick Hogg, who sent both me and you. We done a review on that album each, and I think I said at the end of my one that he's almost the custodian of great melodic rock at the moment. He's kind of the custodian of it. You know, the baton has been passed to him, and he's taken it and ran with it. And that album, just it's everything you'd want in this genre of rock. I think you agree, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. So just a shout out to him, and anyone who's an FM fan watching this, maybe get hold of that album as well, or you know, have a little listen to that. You'll be really impressed. So that's why I've got them. It's a great example just to show you that it didn't die out, did it? And it's back stronger than ever. The type of music we love. So there you go.
Well, you know what, mate. Well said, and fair play to you. That's a great shout out for Nick and Nitrate. Just well done. Good stuff.
Without a doubt. Listen, mate, it's been a pleasure again, and we've got other stuff to talk about. We just haven't been to. It's been a busy, hectic, year for me, really, and you. So, but we'll get together again and discuss another classic melodic rock or AOR album. I'm sure.
Absolutely. I love hanging out with our pals on the live stream, and I love hanging out with Mark and stuff. Sometimes it's good just to get the two of us going again. You know, get in that conversation going. I enjoyed it. Sorry, Mark, I love you, but sometimes I like to have you to myself, Lee.
That just sounds a bit weird, but it's funny.
Anyway. Yeah, it just sounded a bit weird. Edit that
out. So listen, man, it's a pleasure as always. You know, I love talking to you, and we'll be back soon. Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Everyone. Oh, by the way, comments below. I just want to know: have you heard of FM? Let us know. And if you haven't, have a listen to them and put the comments below what you think of them. They're pure AOR brilliance. Got to get the guys, and they're British. Remember, British as well now. So, thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers, Darren. I'll see you later, mate.
Cheers, mate.